Hello, everybody. It's Holger Mueller here from Constellation Research, here with my fabulous co-host, Liz Miller.
Well, I mean, talk about the news, right, Holger? Let's just jump into it because we got a lot to cover. So the news. Yeah, tons of new things happening. I think that it would be hard to go a day without getting some type of press release, pre-briefing, early announcement of how a large language model with a conversational front end is generating content for any number of tools and solutions. So let's just bang that out right at the top, Holger. What are you seeing in your space when it comes to next-gen applications in HR?
It's super interesting, of course, right? And the hype, I think, is slowing a little bit down, which is great, right? People are realizing, how can I do this? There's more and more conversation about foundational models, which enable enterprise to do this instead of using the massive humongous, which have a use case, of course, ChatGPT models from OpenAI or Google's Bard, but they're all consumer content, right? You need enterprise content. So we're in a conversation mode now where it makes sense. The ERP vendors are starting to wake up, right? We have the first conversation about what could generative AI do to the future of work in HCM. Super interesting, exciting, because if you think about what should someone do for a career, even a well-minded, well-tuned manager will have to get on their experience, figure out what can be done. And it's always a different moment of time, right? The right advice I gave somebody who was junior in my team 5 years ago and who's super happy, made a great career, is unlikely to be the right advice 5 years later, even 1 year later or 2 years later. So it's going to be super interesting what we can see in the future of work side. And next generation applications, great that you asked, Liz. It's all about how can we build this stuff.
Yeah.
How about you? What do you see on the customer experience side, marketing side?
It is everything. I mean, I don't think there is a single solution out there. I don't think there's a single vendor out there that has not either debuted what they've been working on for a very long time when it comes to AI, and specifically when it comes to generative AI. Because I think the thing that I always come back to is this is not new, right? Generative AI is not something that just happened in November, right? Like I think a lot of organizations have been working on this for a very long time, trying to figure this out. But I think that now that we have this really lovely conversational interface from the customer experience side of things, it's changing. I think the fastest thing it's changing is not in the experiences that are being delivered. It's actually changing the employee's experience, right? It's allowing our people, it's allowing the people who are in marketing, service, and sales to have a very different work experience because they're able to ask their systems things in a way that they would have that conversation, right? It is truly about the, hey, what campaigns have gone out recently that could be getting people to contact the contact center so quickly? Like it allows them to have a different interface, which is changing the game for how these folks who sit on the CX frontline are working. So I think in a really funny way, it's actually changing a lot of the conversations that you hate so much, Holger. It's just changing that employee, but I think it's changing it for the better. I think it's changing it towards what you've really been talking about, right? Which is employee experience isn't some tagline or something you paint on the wall to say, you're having a wonderful experience. We gave you more tools and technology that made your job harder, which is what we've been doing in the past, right? We're now talking in the same way we've had to shift the conversation about customer experience to really have a discussion around a customer's '(S) experience. We're now as leaders having to have a conversation around our employees' '(S) experience, understanding that this is not about the technology. It's really about what have they been doing that they should not be doing, right? What are they wasting their time on and what can be offloaded?
Right, and it's super exciting because it's going to be so much easier to build these chatbot applications, which before was really super tedious, right? I just write a report about what Microsoft is doing with Power Virtual Agents and generally in the Power Suite. I mean, to say like, hey, build me an application for travel and expenses, then get that generated without seeing any code, change the color, add a field here, move that column out, put a mandatory entry on a date or whatever, what is missing. To be able to change from the keyboard without knowing the semantics of a programming framework and only to be able to speak is going to be relieving so much pressure on that there's not enough developers, right? So business, it's always, low code was always about the technology-savvy business user saying, damn it, that's it, I'm never going to get a budget, I'm going to spend lots of my free time, weekends, and so on, night times to build this thing, right? But it was painful, right? Now it can be done by voice. Of course, we're in the beginning. What could be wrong, right? People build these massively scaled applications. Tons of things can be wrong, but first it has to be able to get done. Then we can figure out what to do best with it, how to regulate it, how to...
And to your point...
Super relief on the pressure.
I think that it's also, I mean, the big thing that I keep seeing is that it's not just changing the acceleration and the acceleration path, it's actually changing the velocity, right? And I think we always misuse, I think that we tend to misuse those words in some cases, right? Because we think about acceleration, it's just the act of speeding up. What's changing now, thanks to AI and certainly to generative AI, is it's changing the velocity at which impact is created, right? It's changing kind of the speed as well as the trajectory. So it's actually making a bigger impact. So it's not just about create this application faster. Even before you realize an application needs to be created, you can actually ask, what is it that takes up the majority of my team's time? And when you identify that that is a repeatable task, it's about, this is what's taking up so much time is a note entry after a customer service call. Okay, great. Let's build that application that takes the translated voice transcript from the call and automatically brings it in, right? How many times have you and I had the conversation that smart routing has been a concept for a millennia, right? But now we are seeing that, yes, the routing, that algorithm, that workflow has existed. It's been the data that actually helps that workflow move and accelerate and have the velocity to change the business. And I think that's the difference that we're talking about. But I think that also brings up some of the headlines that are coming out, right? So you have the headline that's actually just happening and it's really kind of coming into consciousness this week around Google's Bard AI. So Bard, yes, can generate these like snippets of code, but now Bard, much like OpenAI's GPT-4, is now actually generating and debugging code. How well these models are debugging code, how well they're doing that is going to be the conversation, remains to be seen. So I think the real question is not how well are these AI tools actually doing at all of these generative tasks. It's how well are we as organizations and leaders putting up the guardrails and the human interaction to double check it, right? What's our strategy when we're applying it? So I think a lot of headlines.
But the scary thing is right? Like I had this conversation with a vendor I can't mention about summarizing your medical history, right? And writing it in a text thing, right? Which wasn't done before or was done in the head of your treating physician, kind of like, right? So nobody audited that before either if it was done manually by a nurse to brief a doctor before they cut you open or whatever they might be doing with you, right? So I think we can't have this, oh my God, it's biased, it sums it up and so on. I mean, is it better than what we had before? That's the key question of it. Right?
Yeah, and is it better? And then how do we then continue to evolve our processes and our operations around
Can't
it?
Stop there,
because
right?
And that's the part with, and you and I have had this conversation specific to next gen applications, right? Your area of passion and focus here at Constellation is that it's not just about how fast you can do new things, because applying automation and really fast automation to bad old process just makes that process faster. It's really about evolving what those processes are and rethinking those now that we have this, which I think is the key. But I think here's the result.
The interesting thing is now that obviously they built something, and I give kudos to Google, to Sundar Pichai, to say it openly, that Bard or whatever, Lambda, whatever they're using, it learned a language, it learned Bengali without them telling it to learn it. It figured it out itself, right? Which is scary and exciting at the same time if you think about how many languages cannot be translated, how important communication is and so on. If you really found some generative AI which figures out, hey, I have artifacts, I figure out how to find a language, build a language model, because this is the fake news on this. These are not language models. These are knowledge models which you access through an actual language, right? We're just making it, it's just a language model. Don't worry, it doesn't know anything. No, it's a knowledge model with a knowledge graph which you can interact whatever you want to interact with.
It the tag on this knowledge happens to be language, right? No, absolutely.
But the language part had been solved before, right? It's the knowledge part which is the interesting thing.
And it's tying it all together, right? It's connecting those dots. I totally agree with you. And here's what I will say from the news perspective, is that all of this is leading to, especially in the CX space. I don't know if you're also seeing this I would say probably more in the HCM space than in the other things that you're covering, which is what we're seeing now is an acceleration of where these vendors' growth models are starting to then move. So you have organizations like Dialpad. I mean, Dialpad came out with news last week. They've now crossed that 200 million, I think it's 200 million ARR. They've got 12 AI models that they've been working on ground up internally. That yes, some of them are generative AI, but others are, data connectors. Others are, various different workflows that are very specific to both the unified communication and the contact center space. We're seeing these organizations and we're seeing those solutions, whether it is something like a 5.9, whether it is 8x8, whether it's Genesis. We're seeing these organizations transform into different conversations other than we took your phone call from on-prem to cloud. Now it's really, these are organizations that are kind of going down a very new path because it's around data and it's around what are we doing to connect all of these points of data, whether it's to your phone, whether it's through chat, whether it's through email. So I think that they're, over this next year, we're going to be seeing a lot more of these announcements of these new financial, new financial roads that people are crossing. And it's really going to be about in this segment, in the CX segment, it's going to be about how do all of these horsewomen, sales, service, and marketing, how are we integrating those outside of maybe say like an Oracle platform, a Salesforce platform, a Microsoft platform. It's about where do all of these streams of data integrate so that the work and the business applications and the work applications that sit on top of these, how's the velocity of that really impacting?
Great point.
So I would say, hey, watch those financial earnings like quarter by quarter, because you're going to see all of these players, all of these communication players that were stuck really start to accelerate.
Very good point. The other key takeaway for CXOs listening to this is you must be in the public cloud. Generative AI will not come to your local data center, right? You see it on all announcements. If you're still running on a hosted mode ERP system, on an on-premise ERP system, your enterprise will not be able to do generative AI because you cannot pump the context of business moving so fast. You cannot pump it to the public cloud, get your generative AI model, bring it back to do your customer service, your employee experience, whatever it is on premises. This will not work. But the good news is, somebody's fighting back, at least from my vantage point, against all of this ChatGPT generative AI crazy, and this quantum. So much quantum technology news is coming out here for the first time. I mean, this is summer of quantum as well, the spring of quantum.
Summer of quantum.
So, it's overlapping, and of course, in conjunction, nobody's talking quantum, but in combination with cloud and generative AI. So, look for some of the quantum news coming out. There's a ton of great quantum events happening.
You had a great article that you had posted that I had retweeted that was talking about IBM's work that they're doing kind of in that healthcare space, wasn't it?
I mean, that's huge. Moderna,
like doubling down on that investment is really impressive. So listen,
we always say welcome here. We've
run out of time. Thanks for staying with us. We've got a lot of great segments per usual coming up here on episode 56 of CRTV. We'll see you in a bit.
Hello everybody, it's Holger Mueller here from Constellation Research, here to talk to you about my key findings from the recent IBM hosted by Fast Company or joined with Fast Company hybrid cloud event, the state of the hybrid cloud in 2020-23. Very interesting, always on mind, pretty much hybrid cloud with multi-cloud, hybrid cloud being multi-cloud's manifestation is pretty much reality for enterprises today. Of course, how could it be different? An IBM event starts with Howard Bowell welcoming everybody, talking about the latest progress and the key aspects of the security, risk, governance aspects of whether IBM is focusing very much. After that will come a very interesting, controversial panel moderated by Fast Company, but with interesting perspective coming on the view of regulation and how regulation can even help innovation, which is kind of like a little bit controversial, but it was great to hear from Matthew McDermott, who brought in the customer perspective from Goldman Sachs, as well as Gabe Rosenberg, who brought in the legal perspective from Davis Polk and Wardell. Then from an association perspective, Troy Leach, who heads the Cloud Security Alliance, and then from IBM, of course, Ali Farouki, the Chief Risk Officer in the financial division of IBM. So very, very interesting. And yes, there's a theoretical potential chance, and they gave the gentleman on the call, gave some hands-on examples, how regulation can spur a safer operating, and with that a better operating and more successful operating for enterprises from the security regulation side perspective, starting with zero trust and other elements which really can take away the headaches for CXOs heading enterprises in the cloud era. Next up was very short, only close to my heart, a quantum computing panel with Hilary Hunter and Katie Pizzolato. Great to see the progress. Quantum technology is going to be made available through the public cloud for companies. Also has security implications because you have to get the data safely. We watched that panel with Hilary and Katie. Until then we went into very interesting perspective on the importance of data in the hybrid cloud. A panel fresh off the partnership that IBM has with Wasabi, of David Bolam from Wasabi Technologies, together with Nataraj Nagaratman, the CTO for cloud security and IBM fellow, one of the rare breed of those. Very interesting to see that panel, that conversation about this and how important data safety and data management is in managing the cloud. And it's not even easy to do backup from that perspective. So listen to what Dave Boland and Nataraj have to say there. And the whole event concluded with, of course, the carrot at the end, which was the NBA being featured prominently with the Philadelphia 76ers, where Fan-Hei Kwong, the assistant manager at the Philadelphia 76ers, talked about how they use technology, how they crunch the data, how they move equipment and understand and give the coaches insights on how the players are performing, which is always interesting to see technology being applied into an area where we all can relate to, which is sports, which we can see on TV all the time and what it does. So overall takeaway, there's a very strong focus on the IBM side, on the risk and compliance side. That's nothing new. That came out right from the start. But IBM also started to go into vertical cloud with financial services being a key focus of them. They have a lot to offer in that part, down from zero trust technology, capabilities of running containers in a safe way in combination with Red Hat, many capabilities there. And the biggest problem is compliance, and the regulation keeps always changing. More compliance is coming up, more compliance is being thrown onto enterprises by regulators, and it's not easy for enterprises to stay up to speed and remain compliant, and for that they have to enlist help. And I think that message was abundantly clear from the event, that IBM is there to help enterprises not only to operate and run the hybrid cloud successfully, but to run it in a low risk, fully compliant, with no trouble with the regulators perspective and way. This is Holger Mueller from Constellation Research. Thanks for watching my recap of the 2023 Hybrid Cloud event by Fast Company and IBM. Thanks for watching.
You know, we've been talking about everything from where customer experience is, like decisions being pushed down to the rest of the organization, behavior being changed, all of the conversation, IT being so involved in this now and being those critical partners. But a lot of times, despite our best intentions, when you get into the boardroom, they're like, that's cute, coloring in department. Now I need to talk about business. And you're like, but we were talking about experience, and it's experience-led growth. So we wanted to take a few minutes out to talk about what do we need to start doing differently, perhaps? What is the expectation and how is that changing? And what is happening when we start to discuss experience in the boardroom? What has opened the door to having more constructive conversations about experience, be them customer experience, be them employee experience? What got the board to sit up and listen?
I think the boardroom still talks to one another, and the egos are still talking to one another. And I think you can come in with as many KPIs and you know, LTV and everything else that really tells story. I think they still go with whatever they believe and what they bring to the boardroom, right? So, but saying that, there are companies who are smart and realize to bring that younger generation along, they have to change that. So the company has to adjust and has to take on these metrics. Is it easy for them? No, far from. But I think there's that shift happening. And then of course, coming from Audible's all about experience, right?
Yeah.
It was all about, and I think this is a great thing to do. When I started as SVP there, I had to spend a day with the call center. So that was big, the biggest thing that I had to spend and really listen to how they, and these people are empowered to your point, make decisions. So I think, again, it depends on how the company, where you looks at it, because in that case, in Audible, in a boardroom, which is hard because the boardroom is Amazon, but in the local boardroom, that we had with our own kind of group, experience was all we talked about.
With PE firms, depending on the PE firm, they have this one KPI that they're maniacally focused at. Transitioning to this current company, very much a growth company, it was all about how fast can you grow? Don't worry about the spend. Just tell us about what are the experiences you're creating to help the company grow. And the questions were not limited to just on the marketing side. It was more of, okay, the integrated experiences with the customers, and on the sales side, like how are you doing that? But don't worry about, go hire. That was the other big thing. Go hire, go get the best talent. Don't worry about that. Now, a year later, very different conversation. Now it's about, number one, how are you preserving cash, right? So hold on to your cash, because capital is going to be at a major cost going forward. Now the questions to the CMO are more of, all right, what are the programs that are actually delivering the closed won opportunities? Forget even pipeline, forget leads. It doesn't even come into the conversation much anymore. You show it on your chart and that's it.
What closed?
Yeah. It's all about what drove the customer to actually buy. And then now it's much more about also what are you doing to hold on to that customer now that you've acquired them.
That customer experience in general, isn't just something a single department or function owns, right? Customer experience arguably isn't just the thing that Cindy, the CMO, does. It's the enterprise-wide team sport, right? It is everybody getting involved. Everyone is not only involved in the development of the strategy, but the feedback. Go sit and talk to service, but go talk to the person who's sitting at the front desk. Like it's all of that. So how have you then taken that mandate that you've heard from the board, and has that started to shift how you are then defining and spreading that culture and ensuring that experience is that enterprise-wide team sport?
Now the questions on the board is looking at not only me, right, the head of sales, CRO, head of customer success, what does that customer journey look like? And then they're really probing into that. And then when you're thinking about the design aspect of that customer journey, how do we make the customer stickier? Right? And so now it's no longer this kind of siloed conversation of like, you go acquire growth and you go deliver great customer success, you go sell. Now it's come together and how do we make the customer stickier?
Love that.
Making sure that the experience from the beginning to the end is seamless and it feels incredibly personalized. And this shift of going from fast, furious, really focusing on churn and LTV, I think was super important. And it's the same thing with WWE, who, by the way, was the first ever to have a 24/7 streamer. Right. I mean, if you really look at how
first over-the-top network.
And I was there at launch. I was there for the launch of that. That was the first. I mean, no one's had ever done it. This was before the Netflix and the Hulu's, etc. I mean, it's insanity. And for them, they did the same. It was like, but they were immediately busy thinking, how my customer is loyal. How am I translating that loyalty to this streaming and make them pay that amount of money, knowing that they want to do WrestleMania or all of those other kind of programming.
I mean, it's one of the things when Netflix first launched, and they made it super easy to cancel. Right, like you could join Netflix, and they made it super easy to cancel because they knew you'd be back.
And they also encourage password sharing, which now
right.
They were like, go share your password.
Keep joining. It's super easy to cancel. You can do it for 3 months. There weren't any limits, and so people kept coming back. And if you looked at the connected life, like the connected value of every time someone came back, their actual lifetime value of that subscriber was higher. It's now just plummeting because they make it really hard. They put conditions on when you can come back. When you make it hard, it feels counterintuitive to make it easy to leave you. When it comes to the next conversation and what you guys are looking at as the board starts to change, because boards are going to start to change, right? Executive boards are going to shift. We're going to start to see younger generational faces sitting around that table. There's going to be a culture shift around a lot of these boards. What are you two anticipating and kind of preparing for as senior executives? We're going to have to, well, not only be on boards, right, for the both of you, but also kind of start to speak to this new boardroom about what experience is going to be for that next generation. So we're not continuing to go back to those same old conversations.
However, there's now more awareness around people that understand go-to-market. And so mostly they're looking at chief customer officers. If you have, customer success, that's a huge lever, right? They're looking at people with a sales background, marketing background now. Obviously, diversity is a very big topic right now. But it's like the overall shift in the board is now, it's no longer just looking at it from an ex-CEO, ex-CFO lens.
Yeah.
And it's more about how do we help you operationalize.
So I'm going to have to build a group of people around me that will get me in check, I think. So, and to your point, that is diverse, that will add everything that we don't have. And for me, I will absolutely need to have someone there that will do that, that is that voice of the younger generation, and that will be that person that say, hey, you might think you know everything, you don't. It's pretty much top down, and I think if your CEO doesn't believe it, same way I think Vijay, you said it, if your CEO doesn't believe in soft skills, you can start shouting up the roof. It's not going to make a difference to what you're doing.
Well, Holger, that does it. That was another jam-packed, news-filled, insight-filled. We even got to, go to different places. We did a lot today. Episode 56 coming to a close. Feels like a good one. Holger, see you next time.
Good to be here.
You're so judgy and you don't have experience in the things that you're talking about.
You're so judgy.
Colorado's good for skiing. And
No. Wait, hold please. That is officially this episode's CRTV t-shirt.
What is
Holger Mueller, you're so judgy. It's just gonna say,
I'm just opinionated, okay?
Oh wait, you're so judgy. No, I'm just opinionated. That's the t-shirt. So hold please.
Yes, I'm not judgy, I'm just opinionated.
I'm just opinionated.
I mean, there's a fine line, right? So, yeah.
That's my.
The hair color isn't right yet, but yeah.
This is my Roy Kent notepad that says, "Oh, fuck, more to do." Wait, shit! I gotta Google what's happening in the news. Hang on, you two talk. Let me figure out what's happening.
Hello, everybody. It's Holger Mueller from Constellation Research here with my fabulous co-host Liz. Oh, let's do this again.
Yeah.
I'm having a dark moment. Doug is
Seriously.
1 for 1 at messing up the intro, so but get your face under control so we can start. Because people say, like, what is Liz doing before?
Get your face under control. Okay, hang on. Okay, I'm back. My face is in
I
control.
need the t-shirt. Stop laughing, Liz, when we start to show CRTV.
I know. I got my face under control.